Fractions day 1. My goal in creating this lesson was to make it very basic, to make it very minimal, to make it something simple that we can understand and move through. We will be building each day, lesson upon lesson, trying to get better and better at fractions. This is what we did through multiplication and through division. We started very simple and we built upon it. That's what we're going to do today. That's what we're going to do here. So please listen to the instructions, watch this video. If you're not on my Zoom right now, hey, even if you're on my Zoom and you need help because you got confused during something, go back and rewatch it. It will be posted to YouTube. We're going to add a response. I am a sample student. How you guys doing today? And let's get started. Fraction day 1. This is a cute little Bitmoji because I liked it. I thought she looked adorable. And this is called a fraction page. It shows you different fractions split up. We got 1 whole. We got 2 halves. We got 3 thirds, 4 fourths, 5 fifths, 6 sixths, 8 eighths, 10 tenths, and 12 twelfths.
I remember this from first grade that they gave us.
Yeah, you might remember this from a previous grade. You should have seen it a little bit in your previous grades. And this year, we're just going to dive into it a little more. On this page, we got different videos that we are going to watch to make sure that we understand the different parts of a fraction. This is all about equivalent fractions. We're going to get to that after this one because this is basic fractions to start, okay? We want to start at the basics and build ourselves up.
If you've been learning math for a while, then you probably already know a thing or two about fractions. And if you've ever had to, break a cookie in half to share with a friend, well, then you've used fractions in real life. Oh, well, thank you. That's because fractions are used to represent smaller pieces or parts of things. When you're first learning about fractions, it can help to draw pictures to see how they work. So let's start by drawing a circle. Now, this circle represents what we call a hole. Now, not the kind of hole you can fall into, more like a whole cookie or a whole pizza. Now, if we divide that circle or whole amount into 4 parts, then we call each of those parts a fraction of the original whole circle. Because this is math and not art, we can't just keep on drawing pictures. We need to learn how to write out fractions using the language of math. Yep, you guessed it. That means using numbers. Unlike a regular number, to write a fraction, you need 2 numbers. 1 number on top, 1 number on bottom, and a line between them. I'll explain exactly what the line's for later in the video. But for now, let's figure out what those 2 numbers mean. Remember, fractions are used to represent parts.
Why they put the line?
The number on the bottom tells us how many parts that something is divided into. The number on top tells us how many of those parts we have.
I like to think of this as total parts in the whole object. How many parts divided into how many total parts? How many parts are we counting? How many parts are shaded? The little number that we need. Total, smaller, normally.
For example, let's write a fraction for our drawing here. I divided the circle into 4 parts, right? So the number on the bottom will be 4. And I still have all 4 of those parts, so the number on top will also be 4. I have 4 out of 4 parts. That means I still have a whole circle. But what if somebody came by and took away 1 part from the circle? Well, the circle's still divided into 4 parts, so the bottom number would still be 4. But I only have 3 of those parts left. So that means the top number will change to 3. So I have 3 over 4, or 3/4 of a circle. Make sense so far? Good. Let's try another example. Let's say that I divide a rectangle up into 8 parts.
Whoa.
And I give you 3 of those parts. Since the total number of parts is 8, the bottom number will be 8. And since you have 3 of those parts, the top number will be 3. So the fraction I'm giving you is 3 over 8, or 3/8 of the rectangle. No need to think. Oh, and it's important to remember that for fractions to work right, the parts that you divide the whole up into have to be equal. We can't take a candy bar and say, well, I'm going to divide it into 2 parts. So this is your half and here's my half. Let's look at a few more examples so you can really see the pattern of how fractions can represent parts of objects. This rectangle is divided up into 3 equal parts, and 2 of them are shaded red. So 2/3, or 2/3 of the rectangle is shaded red. The circle is divided into 12 equal parts, and 7 of those parts are shaded green. So 7/12, or 7/12 of the circle is shaded green. The hexagon is divided into 6 equal parts, and 5 of those parts are shaded blue. So 5/6, or 5/6 of the hexagon is shaded blue.
I remember doing this in the
All right.
Magic Map.
So you can see how fractions can be used to represent parts of objects like circles and rectangles, but fractions can be used for more than that. They can be used to represent parts of, well, anything, like pets, for example. Let's say you have 7 pets, 4 dogs, 2 cats, and a big fat hamster. Well, that means that 4/7, or 4/7 of your pets are dogs, and 2/7, or 2/7 of your pets are cats, and 1/7, or 1/7 of your pets are hamsters. It also means that your house probably smells like a pet store. Okay, so fractions can be used to represent anything from parts of a circle to kitty cats. But did you know that fractions can also be used to represent things you can't even see? Well, like a test score, for example. Let's say you take a math test and there's 20 questions on the test, and you get 17 of those questions right. That means that you got 17/20, or 17/20ths of the questions right. All right, so that's the basic idea of how fractions can be used to represent parts of things. But there's a lot more to fractions than that. In the next section, we're going to be looking at some of the other things we can do with fractions. But before that, let's review. Fractions are used to represent parts of a whole. Fractions are written in the form of a top number over a bottom number with a line between them. The bottom number represents how many parts the whole is divided into, and the top number represents how many of those parts you have. And finally, the parts that a whole is divided up into must be equal for fractions to work right. To really understand how fractions are used to represent parts of things, be sure to do the exercises. And I'll see you in section 2. Learn more.
We are not yet ready for section 2. So we're just gonna go back to our math here. We're not even gonna watch equivalent fractions yet. We need to know what fractions are. What is a fraction? We're gonna use the links to fill in the answers. We're gonna define a fraction. So since you guys are with me on this Zoom, we're gonna do most of it together. I am not going to write the answers though, as this is being recorded for those friends who are working on their own. When you click the link, it'll take you to this cool thing called DK Find Out. And it says, what is a fraction? Oh my goodness, guys, that's crazy. It's the exact question that was on the top of my page. What is a fraction? A fraction is one or more parts of a whole. For example, a whole object could be shown as 2 halves or 3/3. One or more of these halves or thirds is a fraction. A fraction is a number, is written as, I'm sorry, somebody was entering. A fraction is written as one number, the numerator, over another number, the denominator, separated by a line called the dividing line. Do I expect you guys to write this entire thing? What is a fraction? Who can tell me?
You take a whole like circle of pizza and then like you take one away. You have like 3 of like 4 pieces.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Let me just highlight. What is a fraction?
Is one or more parts of a whole.
Fractions are parts of a whole. So when I'm back, oh, that's gonna be annoying. So when I'm back at Seesaw, a fraction is one or more parts of a whole. All of this down here is examples, okay? It could be included with this though. You could also include this part here because this is very important to what a fraction, how a fraction is written. I know that that's a lot, but that is actually going to be part of down here. The 2 parts of a fraction are blank and blank. When you find it in here, you're going to find it. What are the 2 parts of a fraction?
And a
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't hear the first word you said. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it?
A whole.
Nope. A fraction is are parts of a whole. That's what a fraction is. But what are the two parts of a fraction? What's the top and the bottom?
One. Denominator.
The numerator is the top, numerator. And what's the bottom? Crystal.
Denominator.
Denominator. Denominator is the bottom, the numerator is the top. Guess what? That was the same link in case you weren't sure. But two parts of the fraction, and now I'm going to clear all of this and I'm going to move on. How do I just erase it all? Okay. And now, next page. What is a numerator? Click the link. What's the numerator?
A top in a fraction.
The top number in a fraction. The numerator is blank number in the fraction. The numerator shows
How many parts that we have?
so I know there's a lot of links to click, but is it giving you the exact answers right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's filling in the blank because if I decided, I said, you guys, you know what? I'm going to teach like you're in my class. And if you were in my class, I would make you take notes and write things down. And since you guys aren't physically in my class to take notes and write things down, well, that's what you're doing today. Guess what the next page is all about?
Denominator.
The denominator, the denominator. The denominator is the what number in the fraction?
The top number.
The what number?
The top number.
The what number? The numerator is the top, the denominator is the
Bottom.
bottom number.
Bottom.
And then when I click the link, guys, on this one, it's a little longer, okay? Back when we were on numerator and I said the numerator shows I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blanks. And look, the blanks are the number of letters there too. Because we said shows how many parts there are or something like that. How many parts we have. There are literally the right number of blanks there. When we get to denominator, you can see that it's longer, but it's the same number of blanks and letters so that we will be able to know. So when we look at denominator, the denominator shows, oh wait. The denominator
This one,
says,
I already know what it means because like you put like the answer there. You just find like the first word that she put on the seesaw, and then there's your answer.
right,
like
so you
that.
have to, Jacob, that's absolutely right. That is a smart way to think about it, but you also need to actually read this and pay attention to it and learn it as you're writing it, instead of just being like, oh, I know it's this answer. You need to figure out what that means in your brain and what it means for the math, because tomorrow it's gonna get harder. Okay? Like you're not gonna have to keep looking things up, but you're gonna start having to do things with fractions. And if you're not understanding these parts and these pieces of it, it's going to be very difficult. Okay? Does that make sense? So the top number says how many parts we have. The bottom number, the denominator, says how many equal parts there is divided into. How many equal parts the whole is divided into. It would help if Miss Farmer read right, huh? How many equal parts the whole is divided into. The denominator shows how many equal parts the whole is divided into. Look at that, all the words right there. And then you're gonna do some practice pages. What is the numerator? What is the denominator? The numerator, the denominator. Let's do this one together. This fraction is called 1/2. What is my numerator?
1.
Right? My numerator is 1. A little sloppy, but 1. What's my denominator? What's my bottom number?
2.
2. Yep. Let's do this one. We have 6 circles. 5 are shaded. They told me my fraction was 5/6. What's my numerator?
5 and 6.
No, don't get ahead of me. My numerator is 5. What's my denominator? There you go.
6.
Good. And I knew you knew it. Just make sure we're focused. Denominator is this, numerator is this. They are separate pieces. Numerator is the top, denominator is the bottom. Super easy, right?
Yeah, I have
Let's-
a question. How are you doing without the marker from Cecil?
Honestly, I forgot that I was on Seesaw and could do the marker. Right now I'm using the I'm annotating using using our Zoom thing.
Oh,
Thank you for reminding me, because since I'm on Seesaw, I can actually just use the Seesaw markers, and that way it'll stay on the page and not just move with me. But thanks for reminding me. I started using that because I was on the website page. All right, the numerator top shows how many parts are being counted. The numerator bottom shows the total parts as a whole. You guys are going to write the fractions here. How many total parts are there in this number?
4.
4 total parts. How many parts are shaded?
2.
2. And then I don't like that there's not a real strong line there, so just make sure that there's a line in between those, okay? Do you think you'll be able to do that here?
Yeah.
Cool. I think you will be able to too. There are then 2 more that you're gonna do it to. And then a few more. Do you guys get what we're doing here?
When you posted it at like a 7, I'm like, what is this math?
I know,
and then
it's
it's kind of
crazy.
easy.
Let's do this one together right now. Let's count all the parts. We got 1,
2, 3, 4,
sorry,
5, 6,
good. So how many parts are there in all?
6,
And what's that number go on the top or on the bottom?
Bottom.
Bottom, because the total number goes on the bottom. How many parts are shaded?
4,
4 parts are shaded. So where's that number go?
on the top.
The top. The numerator goes on the top, the number that is being counted. I think you guys are going to do absolutely great with this. There are only 10 pages. Like I said, the first few pages are note pages. Please, and like Jacob told you, it's super easy. You just have to find the last word I say and find it in the thing and then keep going with it, right? Super easy. When you're on these pages, you can look at this and you can play around with it. When I click extra things, oh my gosh, it changes.
Kinda like,
If I
it's
make,
kind of like a game.
yeah, if I make 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 slices, oh my gosh, look at that. Wow.
I'm still learning.
It'll go up pretty high. The most
was like a
important
big
thing
goal.
about fractions, most important thing, they have to be equal parts. Okay, if I draw a box like this, okay, pretend my box is nice. There we go. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna split this into halves. There we go. I'm gonna eat this part of the chocolate bar and Jacob gets this part. Is that fair? No, it has to be equal. It has to be, and I know when we're physically drawing it, especially on Seesaw, it's gonna probably look a hot mess, right? It does not look perfect. That's okay. Okay, it's okay if it doesn't look perfect when you're drawing it yourself by hand. But if you were given a drawing like one of these, and this one was split like that, that would not be a fraction. It would not be an okay fraction because it needs to all have equal parts, and these 2 parts would not be the same as these 2 parts, right? Does that make sense? So you need to make sure that it's equal. I couldn't take this triangle and split it this way. Is this part the same size as this part? No, so it's not equal. It needs to be equal in order to work, okay? That's the most important thing I want you guys to take away from today.
I just found something out. Everyone in the world use fractions when they cut pizza.
Oh yeah, everybody always uses fractions, and a lot of times you guys don't even realize you're using fractions, but we will practice with them and we will have fun with them over the next few weeks, okay? I'm going to stop my recording. If you have any questions, make sure you're joining Zoom and asking questions. If anybody here has any questions, do you want to ask before I stop the recording? Everybody's feeling good? All right. Then good luck to everybody.